All right, here we go. Hi. Hello, everybody. This is Michelle Marie with permission to be powerful. And today I have something exciting for you because I have a duo. This is the first duo I've had so far on this particular interview series. And today I have Karen and Mel Perry. And we welcome both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to read their bio real quick and then we'll dive in as we usually do. So these two beautiful ladies help women who have felt held back, stressed, or stuck with their visions and visibility so they can create limitless impact and income and feel boundless, bold, and shine bright. Women after my own heart. This recorded challenge, is that something that you guys did before? Was a challenge?
Your free gift to your audience is a recorded challenge.
Beautiful. Okay. So the recorded challenge is the gift that they're going to be giving all of you. And it's an invitation to possibility and embodying the version of you that wakes up absolutely in love with her business, her life, and herself. You will feel supported as you gain clarity and feel more confident moving toward your dreams. As a mom and daughter team, Karen and Mel are CEOs and founders of Envision Joy Today. Karen and Mel both have degrees in psychology. Karen has 25 years of consulting experience focused on vision, mission, and goal setting as the systems and strategies to improve consistency, productivity, and efficiency. And Mel first stepped out on the stage to sing at 5 years old. And since then, from performance artist to digital graphic design, creative expression has been central to her identity, and singing has taken her on adventures across the globe. Karen and Mel, after transforming their own struggles to shine bright, founded 3 online businesses together based on their message, mission, and movement for women's empowerment, leadership, and legacy. They have dedicated their life to guiding women to show up and reach out with unstoppable confidence. As producers and co-hosts of virtual events for women, they share the stage with amazing women leaders worldwide. Their latest project, Shine the Spotlight on You, now called Shine to Thrive, Stories, Strategies, Success, celebrated 100 years of progress and future possibilities for women with over 100 interviews of women sharing their stories of success and thriving. I got to be a part of that.
Yes.
It's never too late to create and expand the life of your dreams. Set your sights high and do not settle for the status quo.
Yes.
Yay! I love it. I love it. How did that go for you? The Shine the Spotlight series. How was that?
Oh, it was magnificent, and it allowed not only our audience to step into more of their own power and confidence, it also inspired a lot of our speakers to say, oh, we've been, waiting on this project or this project, and several of them have actually created their own online series, interview series, because it's like, if you could do 100 women, I could do 20, or,
right?
or something along those lines. So several of them have actually created series, and one of them had been going through some personal mental health struggles, and she actually told us, and she's told her own audiences as well, that we were the reason that she got out of bed, and now she's on her way to making $1 million this year.
Wow.
And credits our series with being that catalyst that got her back into motion.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What more could you ask for, right?
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about, we have our missions and we have our mission statements, but, for most of us, our mission is based in our own wounding. It's based in our own experiences, the struggles that we face, that we want to help others be able to maybe get through a little faster or with a little more tools than we had when we went through it. So I would love for both of you to share just a little bit about why empowering women is so important to you personally.
Sure. Okay, so I think it all began for me in working really in corporate. After I graduated from college, I was married, and the market was such that going back to school and staying in school was not the best option at the time. So I started working for corporate, and it was pretty predominantly male co-workers that I had. And I treated everyone the same, but it felt like it felt constrained. It felt like I wasn't able to live my fullest self, and I needed to conform a lot in order to not basically be harassed. Let's put it frankly. I worked with, for some of your listeners, before the time when sexual harassment was actually not illegal. It is illegal now, thank goodness, but I worked at a time where that was accepted practice.
Right.
So you just put up with it or you leave. So after that, after working in corporate and not really finding my purpose, when my husband died, it was really a time for me to look at what I had been doing in my life, to look at where I wanted to be in my life, and to really rediscover myself and what I stood for. And what I realized is that I had been helping others to empower themselves my whole life, with my husband, with my daughter. It's like I wasn't fixing things for people, but I was listening, and I was kind of helping them to see what they could do for themselves. So I stood for myself and helped them to stand for themselves.
Right.
And that's really where the journey began for me.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And I'll jump off of that and say, in the very beginning for me, or the very beginning of becoming an empowerment coach, was because I went through my own struggles with social anxiety to the point where it was really truly debilitating. It was DSM classified. It impacted every area of my life, and I struggled to really feel that I was worthy. I struggled to hold down, or well, not just hold down. I struggled with interviewing. So because I couldn't get past the interview process, because my anxiety would get so intense that I wasn't able to really get any. I had a few part-time jobs in my late teens, early 20s. And then I also was going to school at the same time. And then I was like, well, there's got to be more than this. And there's more to me because I've always had this vision. So I'll go back to the vision. When I was little, my mom was basically my superwoman. I saw her in corporate, but I saw her as this empowerment coach. I didn't have the words to call her empowerment coach, but I saw her empowering women and men from the factory floor to the C-suite. And she was able to make everybody feel like they were wanted and valid, and that their concerns were real, and whether it was health and safety or building teams, or if it was quality assurance, she always made it feel like the root of it was to help people and to make them feel like they could be supported. But at the same time, I saw her in what I remember as a sea of cubicles. It was like gray as far as
Yes.
of cubicles. And it was like I could see her, like there's this bright shining light that's just like she was breaking out of it. She was blazing her own path, but it was like this box that she had been put into. And I remember, I bring this up every once in a while to my mom. It's like, do you remember why I enjoy going to take your daughter to work day? And she's all like, oh, it was probably like to learn about this. And it's like, no, it was to watch you. Because like I said, I didn't have the words for it when I was small, but it was like, I want to help women like you step into their power and know how powerful you already are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we're specifically working with women, usually over 50, who have had some kind of life situation, corporate, or maybe it's their family that has been this holding them back or keeping them stuck. And like, you have this bright shining light within you. And so when I was able to go through my own transformation, which was very tiny baby step after tiny baby step of my social anxiety, to where now I can have an interview with you women, right? Because it's like I had that vision that I could, and there's several instances throughout my childhood where like I stood up for women when, like at my conservative Christian school, when I brought my female pastor, and the principal was praying about how men of our community are the strong ones and upholding. And it's like, no, I took my little anxiety self, little 8-year-old, and I said, hey, you know who I'd like to introduce you to? So that that empowerment has been with me, even when the anxiety was holding my own self back.
I love that so much, because I think there's a misconception. Let's just talk about anxiety for a second. There's a misconception that when people are experiencing anxiety or depression, or maybe they feel unfulfilled or something is holding them back, that looks like them being in bed 24/7, going absolutely nowhere, doing nothing, right? And what we don't realize about anxiety is 9 times out of 10, the people on the outside looking at the person with anxiety have no fucking idea that that person is experiencing anxiety. There's nothing on the outside that's necessarily showing it. But if you ask them what their number is on a scale of 0 to 10, they're like, 11.
Yep.
Right? But we don't see that, right? And so I think that's so huge, because I know for me, like, that's part of my story too, right? Like, I got in trouble when I was, I think it was 11, because I said, so what's the deal? Why can't I be an altar boy, an altar girl? Like, why can't I do that? I don't understand. Just because I don't have a penis, I'm not allowed to do that? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I kept asking the priest, and he kept kind of deflecting, you know, and finally he's like, you know, maybe that's something you should write to the bishop. And I said, you know what? You're chicken, because you can't even answer the question. And my mom dragged me off to the car. I don't even remember if I got a spanking or not. But, you know, the thing is that I had moments where my passion was larger than my anxiety.
Yes.
And it would come out, and I would say what I needed to say. But then often I would like retreat maybe even 10 times further in, because it was like, oh God, I just did this thing I wasn't supposed to do, or whatever. Right. So when people hear my story that like I felt invisible and small and scared, like most of my life, they're like, what? I don't understand, because they see who I am today. But, and there were moments of this during that time. But most of the time it was definitely, you know, kind of that just being super internal and, you know, worried and, you know, all of that stuff. So I think it's just important to name that, because I think a lot of women experience anxiety, and because we don't know a lot about it, other than, you know, people say they have anxiety, you know, we don't often know that's happening.
Yeah.
And there's also these powerful women thinking that they're got it all together, and it's bullshit.
Well, and there's also a stigma, right? There's also a stigma about mental health. And so anxiety, frankly, is pretty serious. I mean, there's a spectrum, right? There's a spectrum. There's a normal uneasiness that we as humans have when we don't know the outcome. All human beings have that. It's uncomfortable because I can't, one, guarantee the outcome, and I kind of never did this before, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And everybody has that, and that's uneasiness, but we label it anxiety.
Exactly.
And so then anxiety, whether it's the uneasiness or the uncomfortableness or the risk of doing something new for the first time, or it's like my daughter and like yourself, the anxiety where your brain is going off saying, you know, get out of here. You're in fear.
Danger.
You're in danger. You're in fear for your life. Don't go out the door. What are you doing? Sit down. You know, the brain's trying to save you.
Yes.
Yeah.
In our culture, we've combined all of that into, oh, you know, just get over it. So when somebody says they have anxiety, if they are brave enough to say it, people say, oh, well, you can just control that. It's a choice. Yeah. You know, there are coping mechanisms that are a choice, but not what's going on in your brain chemistry.
Exactly. I always tell people that feelings are facts. You can't step on my foot and tell me it doesn't hurt. It hurts. That's my fact. What I do with it, how I respond to it, like those might be options, but I cannot control the fact that I hurt, you know, and it's the same idea, right? That we it's God, we could go on for an hour just on that subject alone.
But that's the whole thing I think of changing, is changing the whole attitude around mental health. Is like, at one time, all of us have debilitating something.
Yeah.
And a lot of us can function pretty well, even though we have this debilitating something in the background.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we all need to, it's like we're all part of this universe. We're all the fabric, the threads, and what one person does affects the other person. So we need to be more accepting that we all need support at some point.
Yeah.
And we could be kinder, just flat out kinder to each other about it, because then people would admit and be vulnerable.
Exactly. And that right there, that is the power of the feminine. Getting vulnerable, saying, hey, check it out. I may look like I got my shit together, but the reality is what's going on the inside. Like if I could open this up and show you what's happening on the inside, like you would freak out, you know, and just to be real and to recognize exactly what you said, that we have this like hierarchical kind of world. And the reality is like what I do affects you, affects you, affects you, affects you. And if we can think of it in that more circular fashion, or even a spiral, you know, however you want to look at it, then of course we're going to have more tolerance and more acceptance. And you know, but it takes some of us brave souls like you, Mel, you know, who've been through it, saying, here I am, you know, despite what I've experienced, like I'm going to keep pushing my own edges because I know I have something to say. I have, you know, a mission, I have vision, and I have to do both. I have to honor my anxiety and let those parts of me come forward when it's time.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, what is the most powerful thing you have done? I know it's an odd question. And it might be a hard question.
I feel like the most powerful I am is when I'm honoring myself and when I'm in alignment and grounded, because then I can stand up and I can stand for what I believe in. And so that's a risk every day to me, that can be risky, because someone can be in disagreement with that. And someone can, as I was talking about before, making yourself vulnerable. When you're powerful, I think you're, as a woman, I feel when you're powerful and in your stand, you're also vulnerable. And that vulnerability comes when you're taking that stand. And the other way I think I was most powerful is I gave birth. And I think that's one of the most powerful experiences that I've experienced.
Yeah, and I think
I have no idea what just happened. It kicked me off of everything on my computer. And then I clicked Zoom. I was like, oh no, I got to get back now. We're going to have to cut the video and start all over. And you guys are still here. I guess you just needed some extra time to think about the answer to that question. That's what that must have been.
So for me, I'm one of those people where it's usually, it can't just be one thing.
Uh-huh. I feel you on that.
It's always 3 flavors of ice cream. Or
Yep. Yep.
So the two that really like stand out for me. One is when I chose to get help for my anxiety. And I think that is probably also one of my mom's most powerful, because at the time I knew that there was something more for myself. But every night I would go to sleep and I'd wish I wouldn't actually take action. And
Right.
so there was a point in our relationship where my mom said, if we want to be in a relationship together, and you don't have to, because she was setting healthy boundaries, is that she said, I see how much pain you're in and how much potential you have and how much you might waste if you don't get help.
Yeah.
And my most powerful moment was saying yes for myself, not for her.
Yeah.
Saying, you are right. I need to do this for myself. I need to find the person that will help me move forward. And it actually took 2 therapists to get to the one that actually worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was even like, I get that you tried. And so I was like, okay, we can work this together. And I'm like, no, I know now that I stood for myself, that there's more for me. And so I found somebody, for me, EMDR, which I don't remember what that stands for. I know you probably but it rewired my brain. For someone who doesn't know what EMDR is, it basically rewires old patterns in your brain. And so my anxiety actually, through about 1.5 years of steady work with my second therapist, I actually rewired the old signals and I created safe spaces inside of me so that I could stand bold and be powerful and have that in my history of anxiety. But most of the time, I'm actually not in my anxiety anymore.
Right. It becomes another fact rather
Yes.
than something that's emotionally overwhelming, right? It's like, this is something that happened. Okay. You know,
And the second thing is kind of building on what I was talking about before, is that I've had this calling of women's empowerment. And I knew that the 100th anniversary of the right for women to vote, which there were more to go for women of color, but the right for women to vote in 1920 was coming up, and I got this download that said, you're going to do interviews with the 100 women across the world. And I enrolled my mom to do it with me, but I felt like I'd gotten to this point where I could have done it by myself. So now it's like, in addition to our relationship, I get to choose, we get to choose to be business partners, instead of before, when my anxiety was so bad, it was like, you have to help me.
Right.
Now it's that we get to choose each other every day, kind of like, not that we're in a marriage, but business, a lot of the time, people relate businesses when you're business partners as a marriage. And so it's like, you get to choose every day.
Yeah.
I'm going to be your business partner. We're going to be mother and daughter no matter what, but we don't have to be business partners.
True.
So my mom went on this journey with me, but it was like, okay, that woman who did those tiny baby steps, walked through the doors of possibility from complete social anxiety that was truly ruling my life. I used to think of it like as this big monster, and my core was like this little being, like a baby almost. 5-year-old, innocent 5-year-old. And now it's like, oh, the 5-year-old can talk to the anxiety, but it's like going through those little tiny baby steps to get to last year, where it's like, you're going to do this 100 interviews. It was like the journey continues, but it was kind of like the wrap up of the bow of my anxiety journey. Like, okay, now you can be standing your authority as a women's empowerment coach, because you've been on this journey that now makes you an expert to help other women who are feeling like how you used to feel, or somewhere along that journey. And then they can dream big. And like I said, what ended up happening from that series was a lot of these women who I thought, are powerful women, were like, we're still being held back, and we hadn't known that at that time, that they had these big dreams too. And so it's like, so it's that making that first declaration for myself, and then doing the series with the 100 powerful women alongside my mom would probably be the journey of my most, even though it's like 5 years, the journey of my most powerful time in my life.
Yeah, beautiful. Yay. How about you, Karen?
Well, I said before, I think just standing in and owning yourself and really being comfortable in your own skin is an empowerment, is a power moment. But because Mel was talking about like periods of time, I think after Dennis died, after my husband died, I was really lost because I had really put all of my energy into being a partner.
Right.
And I knew he was older than me, and I knew intellectually he was most likely going to die sooner than me. But I was out 5 years. He died 5 years before I was ready. I mean, I had, you had the plan, right? And
Right.
and so I was really lost. And I hadn't realized that I hadn't thought about me in that equation. I was a part of a duo because we were such a great duo. I mean, I loved him and he fulfilled everything. And it wasn't like I needed him. It's like I liked him in my life. I wanted him. I was out working. We were both independent. We were both self-developed, but we wanted to be together, and we had a great time. And we worked hard to make it, have this really rich, juicy relationship. And I didn't think about what would happen when he was gone. I just really didn't in terms of how much I would need to rebuild. And so my daughter actually, and she was graduating from high school. So it was like, I was still a mom, and I still needed to nurture her until she could deal with her own grief, right? So
right.
I really took a stand for not, because I think sometimes what can happen with older children is that they want to help and they want to make things better. And I kept telling her, you're on your own journey. I'm on mine. You don't need to take care of me. You really, really don't. I will figure it out.
Yeah, because I had seen this powerful woman who had worked in corporate, and I'm like, you got more. Anyway.
Yeah. And so I guess, that journey and realizing that, widows in this country and in the world, because some women lose all their rights when they lose their husband. When they become a widow, they're like cast out. I mean, we don't do that in the United States, but women who are married and don't have a life outside of the marriage. I mean, I had a job and stuff, so I was sustainable, but a lot of women just lose half. I mean, either I lost half my income, but I could sustain it on my income. Some people lose 100% of their income because their spouse was their partner, was the one who was making all the money. And so they don't really, and we are not set up to allow people to grieve in this country.
Oh God, don't even get us started on that one.
So I think I was powerful in that I looked past being a widow, that some women, and it's not through any fault of their own, they kind of get cloaked with being a widow, and that then becomes their identity. And and they struggle because they're not supported in our society.
Right.
To have that be, like you were saying, anxiety is an experience. It's part of my journey. It's part of who I am. Being a widow is part of who I am, but it's not all of who I am.
Right.
And so being powerful in that and wanting to help other women to know that before the death happens, because death will happen, death will come. If you love someone, you are going to lose someone if you love people, right?
Yeah.
And to really help them to have this business so that they have a sustainability, that when the deaths happen, they can grieve.
Yeah.
And they can have support, that they don't have to force themselves to work and force themselves to do things when they're grieving. So I guess that's my power moment, is really wanting with Mel, to empower women to know that their experience can be the stepping stone to help someone else. And guess what? You can actually get paid for that. And you can make you don't have to volunteer that. You can help people for free, you know, and you can do good works, and you can be a great person, and you can, if you make more money than you need to live on, guess what? You can give it away. You know, you'll have that power. Yeah. And then when the deaths happen, when the losses happen, you'll have time to grieve, because everybody, it's just dignified to give people time to grieve.
Yep. You hit on so many important pieces. You know, we don't have a society, like we have our 2-week vacation, like that's it when it comes to time away, so that we can reconfigure, we can come back to ourselves. The other thing that you mentioned that I think is interesting, because I do so much around like role theory, right? Like the roles that we play, and how flexible are we within those roles? How rigidly do we hold on to particular roles in our life? And can we allow other roles to like bubble up when they're needed, right? So like, I know for me, I've talked about how when right before I go on stage, like I want to vomit every single time. Like I want to vomit. I think I'm going to pass out. Like every time. I've been on stages since I was 7 years old, and I still have this experience. And, you know, part of what I've learned to do is, number one, just say, this is my experience. Like, here we go. You know, like so far I haven't fallen off the stage. I haven't vomited, and I haven't passed out. So like, okay, here we go. And the other piece is to be able to call on some internal roles that I know are going to help me show up powerfully, right? My empowered self, my embodied self, my confident self, whatever that might be. And so it's interesting that you brought that up, Karen, about how we can get stuck in our own labels, you know, as widow or as mother or as businesswoman or whatever it might be. And can we be flexible even within those roles, and recognize that it's not all or nothing. It's like rigidity is everything. Like rigidity causes damage in our lives. The more rigid we are in any area of our life, the more damage there is. And I think we're seeing that for sure in our political culture. Yeah. When it comes to like, if we can't even hear each other because we're so rigidly like this or that, how can we go anywhere? And I think if anything, like think about the woman's body, like how flexible can you be? You give birth to children and then you go back to quote unquote normal, right? Like that's, we are the models for flexibility, ladies.
Yeah, that is for sure.
Right?
Yes. Right. And flexibility leads to, you know, the cooperation and the collaboration. Right. And those are all encouraging and nourishing words and actions versus the divisiveness when people are intolerant and that they become angry and then they become polarized, and you can't work with people who are at polar opposites. Because I was saying, like in corporate, right? You know, and I don't want to disparage all males, because even though I worked in a male-dominated culture in the workforce, there were many men that were. I don't want to. They were awakened. They were sensitive. They were confident in themselves, but they weren't narcissistic, and they weren't sexual harassers. Yeah. You know,
that's true confidence.
Yeah, that's true confidence.
Exactly. And that's the healthy male, right? That's the healthy masculine. Male.
Yeah, mm-hmm. But there were unhealthy activities, and it comes from, I believe, what you were saying about getting stuck in your role, right? Yeah. If you're brought up that a male, you learn that a male or a female needs to act and be a certain way, then when you become an adult and you realize that that's not the way, but it's hard to just say, oh, well, what I learned as a child doesn't matter, and I can just shake it off like a coat and I'm just good.
Exactly.
It takes work. And it does. And it's I think people are uncomfortable with that work because, again, it comes back to you need to be vulnerable. You need to be vulnerable to do that work.
Yeah. it's like an onion. You gotta peel off the onion. It's not a quick process. You don't just get to cut it in half. Like you have to peel, and you're gonna cry when you do it, right? Like as you peel away those layers and get down to the nugget, right? Like it's interesting. It's something that when I think of like, marketing and the kind of work that we do, like, is it transformational? Is it business and transactional? Like, what exactly is this? There is this thing where, all of the marketing, experts tell you, well, don't tell people they need to do work. Like, tell them you're going to give them something, and then they'll figure out they have to do work when they get in the door. Right. And there's this part of me that's like, I'm sorry, I'm calling bullshit on that. Like, I'm not going to market that way. I can't. That's out of integrity with everything that I believe. And that is that we're working anyway. I mean, we work when we do our job. We work when we parent. We work all the time. Like, this is a different kind of work. This is a work that helps to create freedom. It's kind of like you were saying earlier, Karen, about like when women are able to sustain themselves in their own business, then there is room for flexibility. There's room to go on vacation. There's room to grieve our loved ones. There is room to just take a break, or whatever, because we're coming from that place of plenty, so big. What were we going to say, Mel?
That we're either arguing for our limitations or we're moving towards our possibilities. Yeah. Waking up in the morning, you're working just to be alive. So you get to choose, am I going to continue to go down the path where I'm arguing for my limitations, or am I going to take the tiny steps into possibility? And that's what I did. That's what my mom's done. That's what we've helped our clients to do. It's like you said, we're working every day.
Yeah. There's in DBT, there's the concept of willfulness and willingness, right? And like that's how I see that. Like the arguing for our limitations is like this willfulness, right? Like, you can't make me. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to keep doing the same thing, hoping for something else, and then the willingness is like, I'm willing to take the risks. I'm willing to fall on my face. I'm willing for this not to work out. I'm willing to have to tweak it. I'm willing to, step through the fear or whatever,
Yeah, so you're taking those opportunities as possibilities,
right?
And you're learning from them, right? So you're going to be failing, but we fail when we try. That's what I was saying about people who don't know the outcome, right? You get uncomfortable,
right?
But you learn something if you say, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
Knowing that I'm not going to be 100% great the first time out, unless it's a fluke, right? Some people
are searching for that fluke. Believe me.
Well, yeah, because some people, that first video that they put out there goes viral,
right?
And nobody can explain, because you look at all the videos that have gone viral, and they're all different. Yeah. It's just like it was a moment in time. It captured people, and it went viral.
Yeah.
And so, but that's a fluke. That's not what normally happens. Is that you build an audience, you have nobody watching. And then sometime between 0 and 1, you get 1. And then they say, this was really interesting. Go check out Michelle. Go check out Mel.
Yeah.
And then you get maybe 3 or 4. But and unless you're paying for people to come see you, it's organic and it's going to take a while. And that's why when, you work on a business, you have a known strategy, but you have to keep working it for a while in order for it to pay off. Because all the people that have 1 million followers, they started out with 0.
Exactly.
It's just everybody started out with 0.
Exactly. I used to do drug court groups, and I had this young man, and he was a gang member, and we would get into these fun little witty battles with each other. And his favorite thing to say to me was, Michelle, stop fucking with the fantasy. Because I would reality test, right? I would be like, so that's a great idea. That's a great instant gratification moment, but here's the reality, and he just would constantly throw that, Michelle, you're fucking with the fantasy again, and I was like, yeah, it's my job,
This is drug court. This is real life.
Yeah. This is real. Yeah. But we
I feel
do.
as coaches, that's what we do. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Yes,
We have to
totally.
say, how much do you want it? How much do you want it? We've
Yeah.
given you the tools and we know that it works, but it's going to take time to work.
Yeah.
And how much do you want it?
Yeah.
And that's where people either get stuck or they have the willfulness, like, well, I can't do it.
Right.
Or they have the willingness of, well, I'm willing to try. And when you're talking about the internet, before the internet, it was much harder to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you had to go, physically to everybody, and you had a local geographic area, or you drove forever to, to
Right.
other geographic areas. And it cost money.
Yeah.
You had to invest more. Because, I tell people Facebook's free. It may not always be free, but right now it's free.
Right.
And you can go in and you can talk to people and you can tell them what you're about. You can have a business page for free. You don't get that anywhere else. So take advantage of it, because it may not be free. It may be controlled by somebody who decides, well, you're going to have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why, the advice about you build your own audience and you don't leave all of your audience on Facebook, although it's nice to communicate with your audience on Facebook. You want another way to connect with them in case, guess what?
Right. Yeah. Or you get Facebook banned, like many of my friends of color who've been speaking out.
Yeah.
Their stuff gets censored. They get banned from their own pages. It's
right.
Yeah, it's big. I agree. Oh my goodness. Shall we go on for another hour or so? So yeah, just taking a moment, I would just want to invite either of you, if there's anything that we haven't touched on around power, your perspectives about power, what you've seen with the women that you work with, as far as what seems to get in their way, or what helps them step into that kind of powerful version of themselves. Any last nuggets for us?
So I would leave, if this was the last thing I got to say, is that it's important to focus on yourself and know that you have a powerful voice and that your journey has been gifted to you, and that you get to work on it, and you get to see that you can shortcut other people's pain, because that's what all of our clients, they've created coaching businesses based on what they've been through. We've created our businesses based on what we've been through, so that we can shortcut other women's pain so that they don't have to suffer as long. And if you're in suffering, know that there are women who have been through it, and that there's ways to reach out and connect, and that investing in yourself is important for your growth and for empowering the world, because I believe, and my mom believes, that every woman has an important voice to contribute to this world, and that we get to create wealth so that we can create health and wellness both for ourselves, our families, our communities, and we can create a legacy not only when we're gone, but while we're living. Because that's the lesson that's ultimately spurred us on, is that the death of my dad taught me, don't wait to tell people that you love them. Don't wait to tell the world that you love the world, and that you love other people, and that you get to make money doing that. Because when we create wealth as powerful, positive women, we can truly, I believe, we can change the world. And that there's, as one of our mottos is never too late. So if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and you're like, I still have a contribution to make, know that you can make that contribution. And if you feel like you need the tools to help support you to make that contribution, because you already have the voice, you already have the story, you already have the tools, because you've made it this far, is to reach out and find those coaches, those communities that will support you to create that legacy.
Yeah. I just want to highlight something that you said, creating a legacy while you are living.
Mm-hmm.
Such a powerful statement. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just echo that as my husband's motto was live life to the fullest.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to always live life to the fullest. And I didn't realize until after he was gone that he helped me to do that while he was alive. And that because of his love, I'm able to live this expansive life and to share, because if he was alive, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, because I would have been happy. I would have been the two of us, and the world can do whatever, but I'm happy, right? And he instilled in me so much love that I can share that with the world now. I can share that with other women, and can I say there is a way to expand your reach, to use your story to help others and to help yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being my first duo interview and for all of the powerful work that you do in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yay.
Yay.